Welcome back, everybody, to the League of Inches podcast. Another interview player series. It's the one and only. Look, let me read it out quickly. A former Sydney Rooster, Parramatta Eel, Penrith Panther, a couple of New South Wales City games thrown in there as well, and a former Footy Show impersonator. So we'll get to that. We'll attack that. The one and only, the Love Shack, Shane Shackleton, mate. How's things? How are you?
Yeah, good mate. It's been a while since anyone's called me the Love Shack. So I remember the first time I saw it was in the paper, and I was like, "What? Who are they talking about? Surely not me." But yeah. So that's nice. Thanks.
Mate, I'll bring the Love Shack back if you need me to. It's fine. So, title of this interview can be the Love Shack. Look, today talking a bit about your career, talking about all things throughout the game of rugby league, and I think you've got a pretty cool, unique story. I think anyone that plays the game has a unique story, and I like to go back to the start of everything and unlock and unwrap basically your junior footy days. So anyone that's listening, the younger audience can sort of resonate and maybe pick some things from your story. Let us know where you grew up, your story, and your junior footy club.
Yeah. So I grew up in South Sydney. So I grew up in Camperdown. Moved around a bit as a kid. So yeah. So I started off in the South Sydney comp. My story, I thought when I was going through it, I thought like enduring footy, you sort of think you have a bit of a unique story, but my story is a bit cliche now. But a lot of players that come through and they make it, they come from a background of not having much, of I guess grabbing onto football because that's the best sort of sense of security and sense of power they can attach themselves to. So I was very much along those lines. I grew up, playing footy. That was my thing. All my mates played footy. I wasn't that good. Again, it's sort of cliche these days. I wasn't that good. I worked pretty hard, and I got to the age of maybe I reckon maybe 17 or 18. I didn't have massive goals to play first grade or anything, but I reached a point where I thought to myself, well, if I train hard, then I never know. I might make it. But if I don't train, then everyone else around me is going to be getting better. So that sort of drove me to train as hard as I did, and eventually it worked out. Um, and I got signed. I was playing in the Metro Cup or the Jim Beam Cup for the Sydney Bulls, and Ricky Stewart saw. Or we played a grand final in 2004, and that was a curtain raiser to a Roosters versus North Queensland semi, and Ricky Stewart saw the game, and so I was lucky enough to be seen by him, and I played okay that day. And long story short, he gave me a call. The call was a bit funny too, actually. He gave me a call. He was friends with Matt Parrish, and Matt Parrish was the coach of the rep team for the Jim Beam Cup. But I went away with the rep team after we won the comp, so had a pretty good series over there. And then so when we got back, Ricky Stewart gave me a call one day. And back in those days, me and my uncle used to prank each other a fair bit. So Ricky
Yeah.
Stewart called and he said, "How you going? I was wondering if it's Ricky Stewart here. I was wondering if I could speak to Shane." And I said, "Shut up, dickhead. What do you want?" I thought it was my uncle. And he stuttered a little bit and sort of said, "No, it's Ricky Stewart." I realised it was him, and then I was that apologetic. But that's how it all started. Stick gave me a call, and then I was a rooster, and the rest is history.
No, I'm sure the pranks did not stop there either. That was just the start of everything. And it's crazy the amount of stories that come out similar to that, where players have just been pranked or feel like they're getting pranked, and it's actually is the coach or someone like that on the other line.
Yeah, then mate, when we were talking before you press record here, there's a lot of cringeworthy stuff that happened in my career. Ricky Stewart had a lot, like there's a couple of them with him, and he's a very sort of respected person in the league, but for a young player, very intimidating. Like I was very nervous. So that wasn't the best start for that. My debut, there was another good one. I don't know. You want to get into it now, or we'll just sort of we'll go
Yeah,
through the career as it progressed,
yeah,
or
We will get there, no doubt about that, and there'll be a lot more stories to come, guys. So, just on the Ricky Stewart side of things, and obviously he was then your first coach. How was that? Ricky Stewart's always been known as a very intimidating figure, I guess, and as a youngster coming through, and obviously coming off that front foot where you thought it was a prank, and he may have seen the funny side of that, luckily. But how was that with Ricky? He's as I said, he's a very intimidating character from afar. It looks like, but I'm sure up close and in person, he's probably totally different.
Well, he's so passionate and he's so
Yeah,
like he's like all the aggressive players that you see. Like you got the Joe Wera Hargrave, and he's probably the amount of weeks he's been suspended, and it's all because he cares about his teammates so much. He just
yeah,
wants to kill for them. Ricky Stewart's very much the same as a coach. He cares about his players. It is that passionate to the point where he's scary for the players at times, especially young ones. Well, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but the way Sticky coached, or the way he approached me anyway, it just fit perfectly with my personality. His instructions to me was very simple, and always made me feel that I was an important part of the team. Um, and yes, I think personality had a lot to do with it. I just wanted to feel like I was part of the team and feel like I had a job that was important, and he made me feel that. So I remember before a game, he would just come up to me and say, "Shaq, just rip and tear, just do what you do," and that was enough for me, and that made me feel like I was unstoppable. And I mean, I played probably my best footy under Sticky. So yeah,
did
he was really good, and I was very appreciative of Sticky. He was the one that sort of kick-started everything.
did you spend time in the junior footy days with the Roosters? So you played Harold Matts, SG Ball or the like, or straight into a similar sort of a first grade role?
Yeah, so I didn't play. The only juniors I played was SG Ball, and that was at Cronulla. So I missed out on all the reps. I didn't make any of that until sort of under 18, and then I went from there to the Metro Cup. So yeah, and yes, I missed out on all the sort of coming through the system. Um, so yeah, that Roosters gig was the first sort of professional outfit that I was a part of.
Mate, that's pretty cool, but because I always sort of say like whether there's a lot of kids out there that won't make rep jerseys, etc., and rep teams, and they get very down about it. They think it's all done, but as you're explaining there, it not isn't necessarily. And there's a lot of stories out there, and I think a lot of people are surprised the amount of players who make the top grade who actually don't make those teams. And there's a lot of people vice versa who make those teams and then fall away.
Yeah, well, I did a bit of work with Wenny this year,
Yep.
and so we work with the Sydney Shield team, and they're like you'd probably say they're like fourth grade.
Yep.
And the thing I see with a lot of the guys in those levels, they sort of they drop off because they get impatient. They don't realize how close they are to playing first grade. So they think because they're not playing reserve grade, or because they haven't got a jumper on that's got a Parramatta Eel emblem or a Roosters, well, they're not playing for those clubs. It's never going to happen. But yeah, I think I was one of the few guys back then that made it um, from that level. There's a lot more these days with the teams are sort of affiliated with each other and from the different comps. So it's a bit more common now, but yeah, back then it wasn't really heard of. So
Yeah.
the fact that I made it from there, I felt pretty lucky. Um, I worked hard as well, but yeah, I was right place, right time. Timing was everything, and yeah, I was one of the lucky ones then.
Mate, the key there is working hard. So don't underestimate the talents and stuff that you had and the hard work and dedication. With the Roosters, the debut came 2005. You spent a number of years at the Roosters there. Talk to us about, I guess, that week, the story behind it. Everyone's got a story. The debut, getting told about the debut, and then, yeah, the game itself.
Yeah, so I remember the phone call like it was yesterday. Um, we got the call from Bobby Jones, and he just said come to training on Thursday or whatever the day was. And I sort of because I was already asked because Shane Flanagan was the assistant coach, and I think maybe a few weeks before that I said, "Oh, Flanagan, what do I have to do to play first grade just to sort of get some tips as players do?" And he said, mate, you probably would have played already, but the second tier cap's done, so you probably have to wait
Oh,
till next year. So I went, okay, cool. I'll just keep sort of digging in for reserve grade. And then I think Sticky asked for a concession to have a player or to have someone else play from the second tier, and that was me. So yeah, I just feel lucky that he did that. And I got the call. I went to training. I didn't get my hopes up even up until the day of the game, because I think there was Richie Fioso was the 18th man, or I was the 18th man. I wasn't sure. So I was like just along for the ride, not getting my hopes up, because I was sort of just trying to, I don't know, use the Stoic philosophy. I forget what it is now, but don't get your hopes up, and yeah, sort of accept. What's the word? I've gone blank now, but just expect the worst.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I just sort of did that just so then if it did happen, I wasn't too upset. But then I
yeah.
ended up playing, man. The day of the game, I knew I was playing. Actually, the day before when I did the training, I knew I was playing. That's when I started telling everyone. Um, and then yeah, the day of the game, man, I was unreal. We played at Suncorp, 37,000.
Oh,
I
wow.
still remember being out in the field and just shitting myself.
Yeah,
Because if anyone that's been there, they know how steep the stadium is.
yeah.
So when
Crazy.
you first run out, you feel like everyone's on top of you. I never experienced anything like that before, let alone in front of 37,000. So I ran out onto the field, and you meant to run out and sort of go for your trot and warm up, but I just ran straight to the bench trying to hide. I was just nervous, yeah. And then I
Oh,
remember the game itself was every little half break, every little anything. It was just like the crowd just erupted, because I hadn't, the first game I still wasn't drowned out. I still wasn't in the zone yet where I could separate myself from the crowd and the game, and so I was taking in everything. I could hear it at all. That was unreal.
what an unreal place to make your debut. That is that is crazy, and it's one of my local grounds. So I go to Suncorp a number of times a year because I love it there. And as you said, the steepness and just the atmosphere as a whole, it just
Oh,
everything echoes. It's an incredible stadium.
yeah, it's like the design of the stadium makes whatever it is, the crowd, the sound waves, whatever. It's just everything's thicker in there. It just feels like
Yeah.
it's poppier. The atmosphere. The atmosphere is just, yeah, it's just different. It's different.
It always seems like there's always so many big moments that happen there as well. It's just one of those arenas. It builds and it just makes everything so much bigger, so much better in general. The time at the Roosters. So obviously a number of years spent there, 05 through to 09. Talk to us about how that was. Obviously Roosters quite a successful club, and there would have probably been a little bit of expectations there to make sure each team every year was successful. Obviously, the ending up goal always is the premiership. What was it like being at that club and for that amount of time?
Yeah, it was. I think for me, it was the thing I focused on, or the thing I remember, are the players that were there with me, or including the likes of Freddie and the coaching staff as well. But for me, that was my first experience, so I didn't know any different. I didn't know how other teams approached the year, but just again, you when you're finished and it's all said and done, you look back on the times that you had, and you realise that the people that you're rubbing shoulders with were just they're legends of the game, and they're sort of just yeah, they're not your normal run of the mill people. They're very special. So my time at the Roosters was probably my most enjoyable time with footy. I love Parramatta as well, but the Roosters, just the vibe, the people behind the scenes was unreal. I still remember playing alongside uh, Adrian Morley, and
Oh,
he was. I mean, I played. My debut was Luke Rickettson's 300, and he was a legend back then. Well, had played alongside Fitzy, Craig Wing,
yeah,
um, a lot of big names, Minicello. But I remember out of every player, Adrian Morley was the one who, when I was standing next to him in the defensive line, he was the one that I used to have to pinch myself and sort of
yeah.
say that's Adrian Morley. who's just flying out of line in front of me about to smash this person, and just you have to sort of bring yourself back to earth. There was a funny thing about Morley. He at training, he's probably the softest trainer that you could ever imagine. And then everyone sort of who saw him play knows how he played. There was a funny story. We were doing a scrimmage where we playing a game against each other. He ran the ball, and there was two people on him, but he still had momentum going forward. So I came third man in, accidentally whacked him around the mouth. His instinct was he popped his head up and went bang, headbutted me straight in the mouth, and then he went, "Oh shit, sorry." It just shows that with all due respect, the nutcase, that type of beast that he was, because as I said, he was the softest trainer. He would train so soft and just gently and just go through the motions, and then once he crossed the white line, he turned into a monster. But just a bit of that come out, training, it was funny.
He has that aura about him, doesn't he? And as soon as you mentioned that, I was going to mention training, and he'd be one of those guys who'd intimidate even his own teammates just because of what he's known for. And that would, I like being a forward. Obviously, he would have been just one of those guys where you're like, in a way, I know you like with the training side, like you just always compare. You'd be like, oh, I just need to get something on this guy. I just need to be. Come on, he's the standard. I need to get to there.
Yeah. Well, no, the intimidation part. Well, as we were talking about before, Ricky Stewart was very intimidating, but the way he spoke to Moz was different to how he spoke to other people, and that's just a respect thing. But yeah, well, so you're talking about standards. I remember when I first went there, I sort of relied a lot on my fitness, so that was my thing. I tried to sort of be at the front in the fitness drills. Now, when 50 first came back to training from the Australian tour, I remember we were doing a coat hanger. Anyone that plays footy knows what a coat hanger is. And I remember he was doing one and he was leading the way, and I was trying to pass him, and he just kept on. He just stayed in front of me. And at the end of the run, I said, "Oh, you've done everything. Like, surely this is me, just young and green, just stupid. Surely, like, you let me win one run." And he was like, "Well, mate, I've worked too hard to let a young bloke like you come and just take the win. So, mate, you got to work harder than that." And just that showed the level, and that was a real eye opener. And it was nice. It was good that it was so early in my career because I got to learn the standards real quick.
Well, you mentioned a number of those huge big players: Adrian Morley, Fitzgibbon, Craig Wing. The list goes on. Like that's a crazy time for a rugby league fan thinking of those names and just how good that club was at that time. And what was the dressing room like? Was it like the old school? That's their spot. Do not dare go there because if you do, these are good, nice guys. But if you do the wrong thing by them, it's look out.
I think when there definitely were certain spots, but it was almost everyone. You sort of knew it, and there was no room for dickheads. There was no room for people that wanted to sort of create that drama. And I remember when I first went there anyway, I sort of gravitated towards the the Islander boys because they'd always be with their guitars and their singing, and I just loved that. I loved that stuff, so I sort of attached myself to them. You had the Payer brothers, the Sammy Perrott, Sia Soliola, Anthony Tupou. So the likes of these guys, and they're all coming through. They're young. So I attached myself to those guys on their side. So I hadn't, I guess, graduated until a few years later. But yeah, everyone had their spot. There were no dickheads because I guess any of the dickheads got weeded out, or who knows? I might have been. Maybe I wasn't. But yeah, I definitely you definitely could sort of see what the go was, and you sort of just fall in.
Yeah, no, 100%. So talk to us about the phase over to then the Eels, the Parramatta Eels, and what came about there, changing clubs, and was it just time for a change? Did you think, or is there a bit more to the story?
Yeah, there is. That's again, I look back after I've finished, and you sort of grow, and you sort of, I guess you find yourself a bit more after you finish footy. Back then, I was still very, I guess, emotionally driven. I was, I hadn't sort of worked things out as well as they are now. But back then it was when I was deciding where to go. I think I just wanted to have 3 years, a 3-year contract, and they offered me 2 years with an option, and Parramatta
Yeah.
offered me 3 years. So looking back, I look at that decision, and you just think it's one of those things where I'll go, you're an idiot. Like it was not necessary. But back then I was sort of still young, still immature, still taking things to heart.
Yeah.
And that sort of made me make a decision that it's history now, but that's those are the things that I guess dictated what I did, and that's how I ended up going to Parramatta. Yeah, that's being in the position I am now, working with players. I hope to help guys have a bit more self awareness. The self awareness I didn't have back then. So then you could make those decisions not on an emotional level, but on a what's best for you kind of level. And I didn't have access to that back then, but I do now. So.
With the Eels, we'll get on to the lighthearted stuff because there's plenty to talk about for your time there at the Eels. I want to first of all talk about your debut for the club, and it obviously didn't go according to plan at all. Do you want to explain to us your club debut and just that year as a whole, because it was horrible to watch. I'm a massive Para fan myself, as people can see it by the background, but obviously being new at a club, you want to hit the ground running. Basically, you've come there expectations as a well-known signing as well. The fans were very keen to have you on board. So how did that go? That debut, and obviously the injury as well.
Yeah, well, it was hard because that was the year. I had probably my best preseason I've ever had. I hit the ground running, and I guess every year is the year, but that was definitely the year for me in regards to how pre-season went. I was excited. I was enjoying myself. The group we had was really good. I loved Ando. Ando as a coach was unreal to me. He was very similar to Sticky in that he was hard, and at times he probably scared you a bit. With like he was sort of a bit blunt sometimes, but it just whatever it was, it just flowed with me. Like the way my personality works, it just worked for me, and I could see like I was getting the best out of me. He was getting the best out of me. So yeah, for the first game to go how it did, man, I was pretty devastated. I still remember the injury, man. I still remember doing the splits and watching. It's like when I think back, it's like I'm watching it in slow motion, looking down at my leg and just seeing the muscle sort of pop under the skin and then just the divot. Oh, it's gross.
It was. But, I was there live. It wasn't good.
Well, you should have seen me leg in the sheds after it. Then because internally it was bleeding because the muscle shredded and then and the tendon popped off the bone at the end. So mate, I was in all sorts. The leg was just like you touched it was hard because there was just that much blood. I remember Heine was in the sheds with me with a doctor. It's always Heine for some reason. He's always the one. He's always the one that's there. I was in the sheds, and he helped me sit up, and as I sit up, as I've sat up, my head just dropped, and I just start snoring. Just fell straight on him. He caught me, and then I remember waking up in the sheds after that. But yeah, man, that was all sorts. I was in all sorts then. The year itself, I've probably never been in the zone for a longer amount of period of time as intensely as that. That was 6 months of training on my own, doing the rehab, just probably as consistent and disciplined as I've ever been.
Can you talk and take us behind the scenes for that? Because I feel like there's a bit of an aura behind this by a lot of rugby league fans out there who think, oh, rugby league players, when they get injured, they've got the money behind it, they go all this and that. It's easy. Like, can you explain just how difficult it is? Because obviously this is your life and this is your career path, and you're out there, you've got a group of mates. That's effectively what you all are. You're achieving one goal, and you're in one side of the gym, basically. They're on the others, or on the training field, gallivanting around. I would imagine it'd be one of the toughest parts or toughest times, especially as a footy player and just as a bloke. Really, you're not out there with your mates.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that spectators and people that aren't players, one of the things they don't realize is that the players' self worth and everything that they identify as revolves around how they play
Yeah.
and whether they're doing well on the field. And you know, most of them anyway. The ones that are really advanced and they've worked it out, they have more internal motivations and intrinsic motivations. They're not as bad, but most of the players, their life and their identity revolves around how they're playing.
Yeah.
So it's like as players, you sort of lose a bit of without sounding dramatic, you lose a bit of humanity when you become a first grader because you got the money, you got the fame, but from the public perspective, you definitely lose a bit of humanity as in like you know you're somebody's hero now. You have money, you have fame, so it's like who are you to feel anything, or who are you to question your self esteem or want to talk? You should be fine. Um, but yeah, so going through the injury like that, not playing, it wasn't only not playing. They said I wasn't going to run again.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's
I
it,
had a
it,
lot.
if people don't know about it, it was told by a lot of doctors the worst hamstring injury that they've ever seen. So that's how bad it
Yeah,
was.
yeah. They said I wasn't going to play. Definitely wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
They said I might not run. So yeah, it was. But I had a lot of bad injuries before that as well. Like I was probably in 1 year, out 1 year throughout the career. So I had a lot of times where there were a lot of times where I faced sort of similar feelings where it was a character builder to me back then. But this one was different. It was a bit more severe, a lot more severe than the other ones. So just I think having the focus, being really focused on the rehab and not having any other way, that's what sort of kept me going. I didn't really think about anything else other
Yeah.
than the exercise I had to do and the strength. Um, Yeah, I got to a stage where probably about 6 to 8 months in, where I started doing a bit of jogging, probably longer, probably 10 months in. And Ando, this is what I love about Ando. He saw me jogging and he was like, "Hold on a second, you might be able to play." So he got me involved in the team. And he saw how much I thrived off being around the boys, and so
Yeah.
he let me come into some of the sessions. And not that I did the sessions, because I'd go for a run and the leg would just hyperextend and I'd just stack it. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready, but just the faith that Ando put in me to just still be a part of it was
Yeah.
made a big difference too. But yeah, man, that was hard. That was really hard, and I probably wasn't the same since. I
Yeah.
probably never was the same player after it. I played another few years after it, and I still came back the next year, and I was lucky. I played City again, and I was lucky in that sense. But yeah, that was probably after that I was a different player, I
Yeah.
think.
You say that with injuries, and I often say this and have these arguments with plenty of people and plenty of people part of the podcast as well. That let's use an ACL as an example, where they'll say, "Oh, it's a 9 month recovery," let's say, and then everyone
Yeah,
expects them to come back and they're exactly the same player from 9 months and one day. They're just going to hit the ground running. And I always say, like 9 months of recovery, no worries, but it
mm,
takes a lot longer than that to actually come back, and they'll eventually become, if they can, the player that they were before the injury happens. Like I feel like the expectation when it comes to injuries a lot of the time with footy players and the fan side of it is very
yeah,
unrealistic. They just see that, oh yeah, he's expected to return around 21. He'll be great from there. It's like, no, okay, that might happen. He might be back then, but there's
yeah,
still a number of weeks after that to get his confidence back, to get the body moving, get the game time, get the game management.
yeah. And I don't like to always, I don't know, dramatize things that footy players go through because obviously there's a lot of worse off people,
Yeah,
but we're talking footy here and we're talking about injuries and coming back from injuries. A big part of a serious injury is is trauma. Like
yeah,
you get scarred, man, when you get a bad injury. I remember, I think the preseason after I did my hammy, we're doing a wrestling drill, and one of the guys that I was wrestling went down on his arm and hyperextended his elbow, crunched his elbow, like demolished it. I was I was rattled for the whole session. Like I couldn't train that session, and it didn't even happen to me because that was the year after I did the hammy. So I was still there, was still, and I didn't. That sort of crept up on me. And I didn't know that was still there. But there is definitely a level of, I guess, there's a traumatic side to the injuries that go beyond the physical, being prepared physically.
Yeah.
There's definitely there's a confidence that has to come after. That's part of your rehabilitation as well. So yeah, being physically right is not, you're not all the way there yet.
Yeah.
There's definitely a level of being mentally right as well.
Oh, the mental things are huge. Yeah, and when you said that story about the wrestling, it's funny because me back in high school, I was about year 8, I think it was. We're doing Japanese classes, and for some reason, the teacher got in a lot of trouble for this afterwards. He took us all out to do sumo wrestling, and we weren't in bodysuits, we weren't in nothing. And me and my
Oh
mate
wow!
were doing it, and he fell
Yeah.
awkwardly, and I was with him, and he broke and snapped his arm, and it became like a Sydney Harbour Bridge type look. And I was
Mm,
similar to you. I was like in shock. We went to the next class, and
mm,
I ended up having to say, I need to just go and have a walk or something because I was just in complete shock. Oh, it didn't happen to me,
yeah,
but I was like, oh man, I actually feel horrible for this happening. And yeah, it's
yeah,
quite funny you say it because I think it is very, very true. And yeah, it's funny that it all how it all sort of happens. And I felt like I was to blame. Where looking back on it, the teacher, hey, hang on a second, I don't know what he was doing, but it is what it is. As a Parramatta fan, I've got to ask you about
mm,
2010 and your first initial thoughts for the first couple of months there in the preseason. Because as a fan, what I've found from the club, anytime we have a really good year, whether it's making a grand final or getting just close to it, the next year is not nowhere near as good as what we feel like it should be. Um,
yeah.
was there anything when you got there? Did you feel like coming from the Roosters, going into Parramatta, knowing that they had just become? I just got beaten by. We all know the history with the Storm and what happened there, but could you tell anything, or you were thinking, "Oh, here I go. I'm into a premiership winning team here. This is looking good."
Yeah. Well, back then I wasn't very. I sort of didn't take in my surroundings as, like, I didn't sort of absorb it as much as I should have. I was just sort of very in the moment, very sort of aware, trying to see work out how people are taking me, and just trying to make everyone like me. So thinking about the bigger picture wasn't really my thing back then. In saying that, Endo had an approach that was different to what he had in the past. He had us doing 4 days of weight during preseason. He wanted us all to get bigger and all to get stronger. Whether that worked or not, I don't know, because I only lasted 20 minutes of that year. But I mean, it didn't. I mean, the results wise, I think we finished ninth or 10th that year. But
Yeah,
man, the vibe and the feel that I felt when I first went there was unreal. It was really good. We had the likes of, Hainsey was killing it then. Felipe
oh,
Mateo
free.
was on fire back then. Hindy was Hindy. Um, so we had,
You know,
and what
still there?
Dinner was still there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that Fui. Like Tim Manor was coming. He was still young, coming through. Um, Birdie was still firing. Like we had a lot of good players, and we had a team that could have done really well. Oh, we had Tamata Tahu who was there. Justin Paul just
oh,
came over to me. So there was definitely everything there that was needed. During preseason, it was up there like with one of the best preseasons I had. Like, just everyone just looked like they were firing. Everyone looked big, looked strong, looked fit. Skills were there. So I mean, I can't compare because I haven't been really part of one of those dynasty type teams,
yeah.
unfortunately. But so I can't compare it to anything else. But yeah,
How much
everything
does
else.
the premiership drought weigh heavy on the players you think at the club?
Para.
Yeah, power. Everyone always talks about it. Anytime there's a chance it looks like a team is going to win it or be close to it, it seems to just become a very heavy burden.
I think the burden's only felt by Heine. To be honest,
Doesn't he still covet the ball?
he
Like,
copped it. Yeah.
oh,
If anyone deserved it, it was him. I didn't. he was one player that I didn't realise how good of a leader and how good of a teammate he was until later on.
Yeah.
When you think about the little things that he did in the sheds, like the stuff that you don't notice or you don't sort of take notice to while you're playing. But before every game, he'd make it a thing. And I don't know if he's doing it consciously. I don't know if he's meaning to do it. But he'd go and he'd make sure he touched every player before the game, before warm up. And that's just a sign of like he's just ready to look after his troops, to look after his fellow soldiers or whatever it is. But yeah, just little thing like that. He was the first to the hospital when I had my hemi done. He brought Macca's, and he was the first thing that he came. He was there the first few days. So just little things like that where you don't sort of stop and think about them at the time, but then afterwards you look back and go, "Far out, what a legend!" And that's why he used to run himself ragged every game. It was just, that's why he's just inspiring.
He's one of the all-time greats, I think, of the club, and in general, I absolutely love him. He's up there with one of my favorite all-time Eels. But you're known for what was that?
Can I tell you a story before we move on?
Go, please.
So before I went to Parramatta, I was at the Roosters. Me and Hindy, for some reason, we'd always get into it in the games. I think there was a game. Oh, you know what happened? I pulled his hair one game. Remember, he had long hair. So whenever back then, whenever someone had long hair, you'd grab a hold of it sometimes, and you'd try to, just to say you shouldn't have long hair, like you're a man. Anyway, I did that to him, and then we had a bit of back and forth. And I tell him every time we used to train, I used to tell him that I won this battle because he got the kick off. We did a dropout, and he got the ball, and I told him to run at me, and he didn't run at me. So to me, that's a win. And then that was one game. The next game, we had a bit of a headbutt, and it was just always on. And then I thought, going to Para, I thought, oh, this is going to be awkward. We hate each other. Every time we play against each other, we're sort of fighting. And he got there, and as I said, he's the man. So it was just awkward. I thought at first it was awkward. He was the first person I ran into when I first went to preseason. And he was nice enough. So I thought, okay, that's a sign of things to come, then we should be okay.
So I'm surprised by the end of his career. I'm surprised he could walk. He did that much on the field, so he was just an absolute worker. And your time with Parramatta, there's your relationship with Fui is one thing, and I want to attack that. But one more question I want to ask you, and it's been documented, your relationship with the coaches there. So obviously Ando, you had a great sign of respect for and loved, and I've heard a lot of that. And I'm personally still shocked and surprised at the time where they did get rid of Ando and parted ways with him. I thought he still had some years there to do a job, and I thought he was the right man to lead us forward. The Stephen Kearney era, it's got some question marks there whether he was the right fit. As a fan, I'll say my opinion. I don't think it really ever seemed to work, and it wasn't the right coach for that time, I guess. There is a quote from you apparently on Facebook. I don't know if you remember writing this or not about Stephen Kearney, and someone asked you why in 2012 you weren't playing, and you basically just said, Kearney's a fucker, basically. And I don't know if you want to talk too much about your relationship there with the coaches, but I feel like both had very different styles and completely didn't mix right or well with the playing group that was used to a style that Ando had.
Yeah. So what happened was my cousin messaged me on Facebook saying, "Oh, how come you didn't play? You're meant to play." And I thought it was a private message. And not that it's right, not that it makes it any better. But so I messaged him thinking it's a private message. I said, "Oh yeah, I was 8. He put me 18th man. I was just whinging, blaming the coach." I said, "Yeah, he's a fuckwit." Like at the end, just sort of venting, having a whinge. Basically, I was sort of back then. I was going through a bit of a shit time. I just lost my best mate. Things, I was having dramas with the ex, all that type of stuff. I was starting to get a bit complacent as a player because I went from being nothing to being like one of the sort of not a leader, not a senior player, but I was went from the Roosters to Para as one of the main signings, and I don't know, maybe got ahead of myself, got a bit complacent, and I started pointing the fingers. I started, Kearney gave me opportunities. There's times where I did things I shouldn't have done. I did the wrong thing. Behind closed doors, no one would know about. But it's there's a lot of decisions I made that went to me not playing that day, and I chose to blame the coach. Now, was he my favourite coach? Probably not. But do I blame him for me not playing? At the time, I did in the message, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, everyone can have their opinion. At the time, I was blaming him because I was just weak, because I was going through something and I wanted, instead of looking in the mirror at what I could be doing differently, I was looking elsewhere. I was looking everywhere else, but in the mirror. Yeah. So that's about it on that.
I'm happy to blame Hindy. It's Hindy's fault. So it's all Hindy. Your relationship with Fui, there's obviously a good bit of banter there, friendly banter. Talk to us about Fuifui and your time on the Footy Show. That character, honestly, anyone who's lived under a rock and doesn't know, please go on YouTube, Google the Fuifui impersonator. It is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I might even go back and try and share a little thing on the page so everyone can see it. But how did that all start? What was the story behind that? Because I think you were before Bo Ryan started doing his ones as well. So you sort of, if I remember correctly, my memory's not always great, but I feel like you're one of the first to actually go on air and do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so he started doing Bo Knows.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or he did his
he did the Bo Knows, the street talk, and then you'd impersonate like Benji and stuff as well. And
but that's so what happened was, me and Phil used to just talk to each other like that. I used to, and thinking back, I'm like, I used to just take I feel bad now thinking back because it was like I was just taking the piss out of him every time we talked. But I don't know, that's just what we did. We spoke like that, and he was my mate. I didn't feel like I was doing the wrong thing, but I was young and a lot younger. I wouldn't do it now probably, but yeah, we used to talk like that. And what happened, the way I got onto the Footy Show was, we remember Tahir, the comedian. Tahir and Rob Shahate had a relationship, a close relationship with a lot of players at Para and with the club itself.
They used to do some of the at the ground announcements and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had a comedy a fundraising night, and a lot of the players said that they were going to help them. They were going to come up on stage and do something like be a Parramatta League. Anyway, everyone. 1 second. Sorry, mate. I can sort of do half sort of Asian accent. I'll come and just do something like that up on the stage with you. Yeah, sweet. Anyway, it turned into, I found exactly like Philly, putting on, wigs and stuff. And so the next week he was doing a segment on the Footy Show back then, and he said, you got to get Shane on because he does Philly impression. And that was it. So I went on the next week doing the Footy Show. The rest is history, man. But yeah, no, that was fun, man. That was, thinking back now, watching the videos now, I still cringe, but it was fun at the time.
Mate, it was absolutely hilarious, and I know everything's changed in the world and how we should be going about things at the time. And I still just think it was humor, it was comedy, it was funny. Philly was all good with it. I say it's definitely play on, and the boys, I guess they were getting around it as well. Was there some stuff in the sheds training field, bit of Philly impersonating? Or you'll probably more so wanted to go, you know what? I'm just going to steer clear of him for a little bit at the moment. He might be wanting to even one out.
Well, I used to run every skit that we did. I'd run it by him first. I'd say, look, this is what the plan is. We're going to talk about this. And you're like, yeah, it's okay. And the thing I wanted to, like, afterwards, after doing it all, the thing I sort of, whenever anyone asks me, is I try to maintain that he's not as daft or as clueless as what that character is. He's probably one of the smartest players, people on the footy field that I've played alongside. So sometimes I just try to echo that and try to tell people that, because that's one thing that I don't want people thinking, that he's that fresh where he doesn't know his left from right and all that sort of thing, because he definitely isn't. But yeah, I mean, at the time it was a bit of fun. Would you be able to do it now? Probably not.
Yeah. Oh, we might have to bring it back. You do a once-off little special chat with Philly himself.
Yeah.
The time at Parramatta sort of ended 2012. There was some Wentonville, as we sort of just spoke about there. There was some time playing there in New South Wales Cup. Penrith reached out, I'm guessing, and an immediate switch sort of happened. So that what happened there, and just your time had probably finished up with the Eels not getting. I guess the relationship with Kearney was a bit dicey, and got a short, small sort of stint with the Panthers.
Yeah, so I wasn't getting the run, so he wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, I was dropped. I was in reserve grade, and that's the first time that really happened to me since playing first grade. So that was a bit of a hit to the ego. And basically, I was trying to revive my career. I didn't know what to do. I think I didn't really have a manager at the time either, because I sort of fell out with my manager at the time, and then yeah, a manager sort of reached out and said, look, I think I might be able to get you an opportunity at Penrith. And he was just a favour. He was just doing it for me as a favour, because he was managing a good mate of mine. And yeah, it was basically I was like a 6-month contract, trying to play good enough to sign for another, to get a contract out of it. And man, I was very grateful that Ivan, because I sat down and had a chat with Ivan before I signed, and I was just grateful that he gave me a shot. I didn't perform for him, and I feel, I wish I had been able to repay the favour. That he extended the offer to me, so I wish I had been able to repay that. But yeah, man, I was just that that was one of those stages in my life, and that's just how it went.
Yeah. You got to play a bit of representative football, the city country clashes. You got 2 of those reps for New South Wales City. Talk to us about that. At the time, it was a pretty big fixture. It felt like a genuine audition for a blue spot as well. There was a number of times where there was literally a position against 2 guys going against each other, going at it, and whoever won that battle got the jerseys. So what was that like representing City?
That was awesome, man. That was the best. Like up
Was that
until
Freddie,
that.
coach?
So first coach was Cartwright, and then Freddie was the 2011. Yeah, that was like a sort of a boyhood dream, man. Just playing in some sort of, or being recognised, I guess, enough to play in that. That was massive for me, to be picked. It was big enough for me to be a first grader. So to get picked for it, just to level up from that, and to play alongside the best of the best, was unreal, man. We had the likes of Luke O'Donnell, O'Mealy was in the team, Haynes was in the team. I mean, these are Origin players, and yeah, it was just, oops, sorry, man, there, yeah, and so yeah, that was unreal. It was the best week of my life. Tony Butterfield was part of that. He was unreal. He was one of the best additions to that. And then just from his being like around someone from that era as well. He was the leader to the likes of Chief, Joey Johns.
Yeah.
He was their leader. So having him in the camp too was unreal. And then the second game was with Freddie and Hayden Knowles and that crew. We had the team that had the most redheads in one team in one game. I think you had there was 4 of us in that game, in that team. So that was awesome as well. But yeah, just a privilege, man. Just stuff you look back on, you go, far out. I was lucky to be able to experience that.
What was Freddie's coaching like? I've heard plenty of rumors, the earthing, that the walk around barefoot. You're talking about the redheads as well. Was there a sponsor there with a sunscreen company? Because there's probably would have been a fair few used.
Yeah, well, we played. I think the game was in Albury, so it didn't matter. So we were fine. Yeah, it didn't matter. But yeah, Freddie, man, I love Freddie's approach. So I was at Roosters when he first started coaching.
Yeah.
And we, man, I appreciated Freddie so much. He's very left of centre, very different to what a normal coach would be like. But I'm with that. I'm with the way he was. Like, it's a bit weird, and I like that stuff, the mindfulness, the awareness, all that sort of thing. We'd sit in his office some days just for a normal chat, and I'd be in there an hour and a half later,
Wow.
talking about trees and leaves and different colours of green. So and I was that worked. That was good for me. But yeah, I don't know if many other people sort of jerry onto it or like could see the value in it. But I did, and yeah, I enjoyed my time under Freddie with the city team as well as with the Roosters. And he was just someone that could explain things really well, like his take on things and the way he could articulate it to you. It's just he was different. He was different to other people. So yeah, he was. Everyone knows how good of a player he was, but I don't think he's being given the not the props, not the props, but the I guess the appreciation for the type of coaching he does. Because yeah, I'm sure the players feel it, but yeah, I don't know. Just that aligns with whatever I am. I think may not be like everyone else, but yeah.
A couple of fan questions for you. Thankful to those that have wrote in. Your first one, a player that you played with, you played at a couple of clubs there that has really that really stood out for you in your career, whether it helped you throughout your career, whether it was just because they were freakish abilities. Someone that really stood out for you.
We mentioned Morley earlier, and he was a massive. Fitzy was huge. Fitzy was the one. Sorry, man, I've got a few, but yeah, I got to say more. Fitzy was the one who I would say, "What do you want me to do?" And I'll just do that. He was my leader. You had the likes of Toops, Anthony Tupou. He was the type of player that would just do freaky things that people couldn't do. Like that just he would pull off plays that no one else could pull off. Letty Mateo was very much like that. Yeah. So yeah, they're probably the main guys. I mean, obviously I've played alongside so many good players, but so I'll mention those guys, those four guys.
There's a couple of Para fans that listen to this one. I've got to ask you one question. Jared Hayne, obviously, you got to play with him and around his sort of peak. It's fair to say. Just can you explain this sort of his talents and just his aura as well around the group, training on the field? I feel like there's times where players who are playing with him would just sort of sit back and just watch because there's just some times where you go, I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah, especially because we'd be in the gym and we'd be pumping bench press and squats and sweating our ass off, and he'd be in the corner doing core workouts or glute exercises, and he'd be bigger than all of us and probably stronger than us, and we're just busting our guts, and he's doing these little exercises. That's all he needed. He knew himself. He knew himself.
Yeah.
And then we'd be doing the Para Park run, and he'd probably get lapped twice.
Yeah.
And just be not want a bar of it, but then on the field, training in the game, he'd score a full field try, stepping 8 blokes.
Yeah, ridiculous.
And just do it all the time. He was a monster, and he was the quickest person in the team, and as agile and just the footwork and skill, it just had everything.
Yeah.
It's like, one of those ones you just look back and go, stuff for you, Jared.
I remember my pop, he played for Parramatta and got to watch all throughout the years. And he said to me before he passed away, he said that Hayne was probably the most freakish, talented player he's ever seen. Just his natural ability was just, and for me, that meant a lot to hear that because he's watched so many great players over his time and just shows you how much of a freakish player he was and just what he could do. Like to be able to say we've been able to witness that, obviously remarkable. So. And I guess with you, like with the teammates, did it give you a bit more confidence as well, knowing you had like him, you had Hindy next to you as well? These sorts of players, you mentioned the Roosters guys as well, like having these players next to you, and you said about how Hindy goes along and touches everyone. I'm sure that's doing something for Hindy, but it's also doing something for all the teammates because they're probably going, you know what, I've got him in the line of battle, basically. I'm good.
Yeah, well, I think having players like that next to you, you just don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
You just want to do your best. And I think being able to harness whatever it is that's going to get the best out of you, that's the challenge of a player. Yeah. So that's what you aim for. When you have players like that next to you, you just want to do as much as what they do for you. You want to do that for them as well.
Yeah. I got David giving you a bit of a wrap here. There's no question. Just wanted to let you know that one of the most underrated players, tough as nails. So you've got a big fan there in David. Another one here. Dave has said, how would you rate your time at the Eels compared to the other two clubs you played at?
I obviously the first game put a bit of a rough start to it.
Yeah.
Had it not been for that, I mean, it might have been my most favourite time. But I loved it. I loved it there. I still got mates that I talk to now from that club. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The last one, Borgie wants you to do your Philly impersonation, but we've already spoken about that. It will not be happening here, but who knows what happened. But if you want to see it again, go onto YouTube. Go on. There's plenty of ways to find the
Wait,
videos, but he won't be able to do one now.
no, I haven't done it for about 13 years.
Wow.
10 years.
Were you getting gigs? Were you getting people reaching out saying, "Can you come along as Philly?" And
I was, man.
yeah.
I did a few birthday parties and I did a few because back then that was it. Like I was doing the Philly stuff and then footy ended. I didn't know what I was doing. I had nothing. So and then I had people saying, "Oh, here's $1,000, $500 to come to my birthday party." I'm like, "Shit, okay, I don't know what else I'm doing." And that was I remember walking into a house once to a birthday party, and then I just walked in not really knowing what to expect, dressed up as Philly. And then I've walked in, the party's going on. Everyone's sitting down waiting for someone to walk in. I've walked in and then everyone's just looking at me. And so then I'll have to come out with this act. I didn't have anything planned. I just started talking like Philly and just rolled and just imagine that.
That's bizarre. I'll talk to you off here. We might have to do a Philly night. We bring one back. We bring the great man back. We bring the Philly impersonator back. We see what we can do. That'll be remote. It's the Reg Reagan of the modern era, I feel like. So one more question for you. We do this with all our guests for this year's interview series. I want you to build your ultimate touch footy team. I'm a bit of an ex-footy touch footy player myself. Hung up the boots this year. Had a few back problems, so I've got to stop the sport. But let me know. You can take this wherever you want. So 2 wingers, 2 links, and 2 middles.
2 wingers, 2 links, and 2 middles.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a bit of a list I wrote down for my team, and hopefully this works. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I've got Gordon Tallis.
Ooh.
Gordon Tallis, just in case it kicks off, and he just fight everyone.
Scare the shit out of everyone.
He just bash everyone. So that's the intimidation aspect there. And then I've got Hindy and Fitzy. They'll do all the tags, or is it touch footy?
Yeah.
They'll do
footy,
they do all the defense. All right.
Yeah.
And then we'll have Hindy and Fitzy can do all the touches, all the defense. He'll do all the running rounds. They'll do all the running rounds for everyone. And then we've got Ponga and Johnson.
Yep.
They will just win all the games for us. Yep. And what have I got left? So 2.
No, you got one more left. You got one more. So you've probably got going off your team. I'd say you've got probably a winger or a link left.
Hammer, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You got to go. How many? Everyone says Hammer at the moment.
Yeah, Hammer. Hammer has not been spoken about yet, but it's the same idea. I've had Jason Saab because the speed. Like everyone wants some speed, so it's out of Hammer or Saab. So you've. I like the way you're thinking there.
Yeah, I was going to say actually just bring Roger Fabry to the team. Everyone's heard of Roger. We'll just get her on fast to be as quick as Hammer. But yeah, I don't think it works like that.
Shout out to you, Roger. Come on the podcast if you want your absolute character. I've seen some of your videos lately. He's a madman. So good bloke. Just what about you as well personally? Update everyone what you're up to these days, what you're doing. If you want to plug a business or something, please do. Just let everyone know how Shane is currently.
Well, mate, I'm a counsellor first and foremost at the moment. So I specialise in high performance. So I work with athlete development. So I do counselling for anyone, but I focus specifically this year on athletes. So we talked a little bit about the preparation and getting yourself right enough to to perform at your best. I help players sort of unlearn all the bad habits that we have conditioned into us growing up, so then they can, things that affect their confidence and their, I guess, things like self-talk and motivation, motion regulation, all that sort of thing. I work with players to get those things under wraps, so then they can play as well as they possibly can. Get out of their head, and so counselling, mate, and a bit of coaching. But yeah, that's about it. I'm loving it, man. I'm enjoying giving back. I'm enjoying teaching players, the up and coming, like the next generation, through my mistakes, I guess, to try to help them achieve the things that I achieved and more, and live their dreams type thing. You get a bit deeper as you get older.
Definitely.
Life's very precious, and I try to share the love as much as I can.
Mate, feeling the love, that is for sure. I appreciate you really coming on and having a bit of a chat about life, about your career, spinning some yards. There's been some classics in there as well. So I hope everyone out there has really appreciated this episode. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope you keep safe, stay safe, and keep busy as well. It seems like you're still kicking and smashing goals off the field.
Thanks, Joel, mate. I really appreciated the chat, and no, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be on.
Perfect. Thank you.